Hi, BookTube. Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner, and it's a new month. It's April. It was April Fool's Day, and actually some of my coworkers did play a couple of April Fool's jokes on each other. But I don't usually do it because I would be so terrible. I would just give it away right away, and I'm not good at coming up with jokes and stuff. My mom, when I reminded my mom, she's a little she's kind of. She wished she had done a little, played with my, did a little joke on my nephews and my niece. They came surprise visit this weekend. They had to come up for something that my brother-in-law had to go do, and so they offered to come stay with us for a few days. And so that meant I didn't get as much reading done as I normally would have, which is fine. Cause, I was so excited and happy that they were coming. They decided to come because oftentimes I only see them a couple times a year. Because, it's hard for I have to get off and, I have to ask off in advance at work. And, and then my dad works still a little bit. Not like the kind of job he had before, but like his job is similar to mine as far as hours go. Although he isn't, he doesn't always have to go. And like once winter comes around, because he works at the golf course, and once winter comes around, it still gets cold enough where we live where people aren't golfing as much, so he's not needed except for holiday events at the golf course. But I was so happy they were coming, so I was fine. I was excited. I was cool with it. It's not like I'm being like, I didn't get any reading time. It's not like that. I don't mean it like that. I'm cool with it. I was happy to spend time with them, and so excited they came. They surprised us and were able to come for a few days. But I did get a little bit of reading done. Well, first I did finish. I finished on the day that they were coming. I finished, because they didn't come until the afternoon. I finished The God in the Woods by Liz Moore, which I enjoyed that. And that book, it felt like I got through that book not super fast, but fast, I read it like in a week or two, I think, because the chapters were short and I kept wanting to turn the pages and find out what happens next. And then there was the fact that they would, like, it was multiple, perspectives, so there were different characters that we would be in the heads of. It's like we would get one character's story or POV, but then the next section would be someone different. So I wanted to keep going until we got to the next person. We got to that person's POV again. And then it's a mystery. It's a bit of a, what happened to both children? Are they still, were they still alive? Did the one back in the 60s, the little boy, did he die? And is his sister still alive? That kind of thing. And who is the one who really was responsible for the child, the boy, what happened to him and everything, and, allowed him to get kidnapped and everything. So I wanted to know what was going to happen and what was going to be revealed. And there were some relationships that I wanted to see what was going on with those relationships and how things were going to work out with those. And it was one of those, and it also kind of like, it was one of those reveals at the end of the story where I was like, I shouldn't have been surprised, because the way they set it up, it kind of makes sense that they went in that direction with the reveal. But then at the same time, I was still surprised. Because I was so sure it was going to be this person. Because that's the book implied. It was going to be a certain person who was going to be responsible for what happened to the little boy. But then it turns out, maybe that wasn't the person. Maybe it was someone else. And I'm trying to be discreet about it and not give away anything. But yeah, so, and I don't know if I'll do a separate review for it or not. I mean, if I do a review, I should do it now while it's still on my brain. So at some point, I'm off, I work again tomorrow, but then I'm off for 4 days, so I could probably film a review video on that day, because, as I said, this year, I want to do more reviews, individual reviews. so I was able to squeeze that and finish that book. And then currently I am reading Poldark, the first book in the Poldark series. This is Ross Poldark. This is about our main guy. He is, in case you don't know, Ross is. I mean, actually, this is during around the time when we in America separated from England, and the American Revolution happened. And this is the British perspective. He was a soldier in that war, and he comes home, and he finds out his dad died, and his dad was in a lot of debt. They lost a lot of their and their house is falling apart. And it's only the two servants, and they're still living in the house, even though the Ross's father is gone. And his cousin, who he was gonna and she's yeah, okay. So, and it turns out that the woman he was engaged to, Elizabeth, the love of his life, she is marrying his cousin instead. And he is and he is heartbroken and not happy. He's trying to be the bigger man and be like, okay, I'm not gonna put up a fight or anything about this. Although he is a little, a little pouty about it, a little bitter about it. And so he focuses on rebuilding his, their family's home and their fortunes and everything. I think they own mines. And at one point he comes across this, I think she's like 13 at the time. This girl does the Melda, and he saves her from getting assaulted because she had an abusive dad, and she also was trying to help these two, a cat and dog, who had been tied together, and everyone was watching these two animals try to escape, and it was their entertainment. And she came to the defense of the cat and dog and especially since the dog was her dog. And he decides to take her on and, have her live with him and help him around his home. But of course, technically he kidnaps her. I mean, not like he took her, because she had a father. But her father was abusive, so he shows up, of course, wanting his daughter back, and Ross is like, no, y'all have to fight me first if you want your daughter back. He's also, he's also dealing with, so there's that's going on, and then there's like, he's trying, he's watching Elizabeth as her life, watching her, she's living her life with her husband Francis. And I don't know if it's her sister or another cousin, Verity, she is thinking about marriage, and she wants to marry she meets this Captain Blamey and wants to marry him, but he is a widower, and supposedly he had murdered his wife. Like, he was an alcoholic. So, but he tells her that it was an accident and he hasn't had a drink in months, but her father and, I guess she's Francis' sister, maybe? I don't know how Verity's related to the family. Like, if she's another cousin or... I see, no, she's Francis' sister, so she's Elizabeth's sister-in-law, because Charles is her father. So they don't, Ross, even though he's not too sure about the situation, he does not think, he's a little wary of Captain Blamey, and is not sure if he believes these rumors, but he trusts Verity, that she, believes that Captain Blamey is doing better, and that he told the truth when he said it was an accident with his wife and he didn't actually kill her. And there's a bit of a fight between Charles, Francis. They show up at Ross's house because they are, they're unhappy that Ross has let this guy is helping, encouraging Blamey and Verity as a couple. Like, he's trying, that he's supporting them. And there's this fight where Francis gets shot. They have a duel, and Francis gets shot, and so does Captain Blamey. And he realizes because it got to that point, he has to walk away from Verity, and this has put her in a depressive state. And I think she's resigned herself to spinsterhood because she doesn't think she could love anyone else. And that she's thinking in her mind that her family was trying to do what was right for her, what they thought was best. And even though part of her still loves Blamey, she's like, I need to just let him go because my father and brother are never gonna like him. They're never gonna trust him. They're never gonna believe that, And it's not the only one that there's rumors about, because they're not the only ones that people are talking about, because when Ross took in Demelza, there's, the rest of the family's talking about that, and they're like, I cannot believe he took in this little waif, and they think very badly of her, and they're like, you kidnapped her from her father, and, like, they're very judgmental. So, to me, this is kind of a trollop, or this kind of makes you think a little bit of a trollop or a Jane Austen novel, with this whole, the rumor mill, and everyone talking about each other, and the family just hanging out. And as one bad review pointed out about Pride and Prejudice, there's a famous negative review about Pride and Prejudice where it's like, it's all about people going to each other's houses, and that's kind of what's happening here. The only difference is that it's on the Cornish coast, so it's near the seaside in this case. But and it's more focused on, I think they're more middle class, hard, working hard, owning land and hard labor and stuff, that kind of environments of just these aristocratic people who live, cushy lives and stuff. But so far I'm liking it. It's slow, and it's not a lot. It's more like the day-to-day life of the Poldarks and Ross trying to rebuild things. So there's not a lot of action going on. But I'm enjoying it so far. And I have almost all the books. There's just one more book I'm missing. And that's the fourth. I think it's the fourth one that I need. And it is on my wish list. But so far, I'm enjoying it. And once I read it, hopefully the TV series will still be available. I think it's on Amazon. It's on Amazon Prime. So hopefully it will still be available on there. I have not picked up Guns of August because I kind of wanted to focus on this one because I figured it would be easier to read this than try to read a non-fiction World War I book. Let's see. We went to the, and I haven't gone back to the Bee Sting yet, but I do want to this month. But also, we went because we were going into this little town, a certain little town where next to the town where we live. We took my sister there to do and my niece to do a little bit of shopping. And there's some little boutique stores that my mom went to show my sister. And there's a bookstore, an independent bookstore, the country bookshop that I always like going to. So I figured, we'd take advantage of the opportunity to go there. But I don't get to go to that one as often because it's it's kind of hard because it's in the next little town, and there needs to be a reason why my mom or dad would want to go there to, because the Books A Million or the little used bookshop is a little bit, I can get to there more easily. It's closer, so. Books A Million, I still gotta be driven to Books A Million, but and the country bookshop, so I don't get to go there as much as I would like to. So I take advantage when given the chance. I immediately was like, "Can you drop me off there?" So I ended up getting Writers and Lovers by Lily King, and yes, the sequel/prequel book to this just came out. I cannot remember what it's called. But this was one I was kind of interested in. I was definitely intrigued by it. Olive talked about this book. It's one of her favorites. And it was, but I wasn't sure. So at the time at least, but finally I decided I'm gonna go for it, and I got it instead of a fantasy, because I did look at Bright Sword. For instance, I mean, I saw, um, I looked at Bright Sword and a few other books, but I decided to settle on this one. So from the back description, I remember it said that her this was a woman, her mom had just died, so she's grieving the loss of her mother, and she and apparently, according to this description, she, I guess, a love affair that failed, like a break, she experienced a really bad breakup. um so she goes back to Cambridge, Massachusetts, not Cambridge, England, but Cambridge, Massachusetts, um to live a more creative life. And I believe there's a love triangle in this story. And I know, and like I said, the other book, Hearts and Lovers, or something like that. It's a prequel sequel, so it's a book about the events before this one and after the events of this book. So, and from what I heard, and I was told that it's probably a good idea to read this one first, because this one will spoil, or the other one will spoil what happens in this one. And this was the first one I heard about, so. And the other one is in hard, because it's a new book, it's in hardback, so. And I don't even know if it was at the library, because that's the other thing. I finally went back to the library today, and I should have looked to see if this was there, but if the new one was there. It might have been, because I know they have a new books section, books that were just brought into the library. But yeah, this is not my usual read, but I mean, like, right now, the last few years, I have been getting into more contemporary stories and more about everyday life, and or the dramas of everyday life. I've been getting more into those kinds of books. Which is funny, because I was reminded of I was thinking about ideas for which Jane, because you know how it's very popular to write Jane Austen, modern versions of Jane Austen novels, but how it's going to be kind of hard to do, especially if you're writing them in the US, where some of the conflicts and things that women had to deal with back then, and how, the importance of finding a husband and all that, now we look at it as not as a big deal. Like, why do people have to deal with women? Like, we as women, we don't have to struggle with finding husbands, and we have a lot more freedoms now compared to like the time period of Jane Austen. And I had actually come up with an idea for how a modern retelling of a Persuasion, because you always see Pride and Prejudice ones, and then Emma's a very easy one to do, because you could just do a high school setting, like you could do something like Clueless with Emma. And I came up with an idea, like, and it was inspired by the fact that where we live on a golf course, and there's a country club and everything, so and then I told my friend Sammy about it, but then she reminded me that she doesn't like contemporary romances. She prefers historical. So it was a little bit of I got excited about sharing with this idea with you, and then you remind me that you wouldn't read it because it's not your kind of. But then I also remembered that, I would probably, there is another person in my life that likes writing too. I remember they were telling me about a book idea, and I was like, it's because it was a time period that I'm just not interested. And it was also weird because I know this I'm related to this person. So I was like, oh, that kind of makes you a little hypocrite. I can't really judge Terry or complain, because then that would make me sound like a hypocrite, because there's someone in my someone I know personally that also, I've said, oh, what you're writing is not necessarily something that I would be interested in. But yeah, this because I mentioned getting into more contemporary story, it made me think of that moment, that time where that incident, that conversation with Terry. But anyway, I am excited to read this. And it kind of made me think of what I want to do for springtime and for my reading springtime. Okay, so now, yes, I went to the library. Finally went to the library. And it's been so long. I think that's why I was browsing for so long, because it has been a long time since I've been to the library. It was kind of a spur of the moment decision, because I kept walking by the location of where the new version of the library is going to be, which is going to be a bigger building, and I'm excited about that. And I feel like, okay, I gotta go to the library, because I don't want to just wait until that library gets built, because then I would feel bad. I would feel guilty. So yeah, that reminded me of that. So I finally was like, okay, I'm gonna go. And and it was like, it helped that it was right after my sister and her little family unit had left, so there wasn't, like, I didn't have to worry about any, like, I could focus on both a book I own and library books. No pressure, and we're not going anywhere, and I'm not going anywhere in the next 4 days. I'm working tomorrow, but I get 4 days off, so that's the other thing, is not just finding the perfect time where I feel motivated, but also I just don't like the idea of having library books when I know I'm not going to get as much time to read, or we're going to be traveling or something, and I don't want to have to bring my library book with me. Not that I'm irresponsible with my books. I'm like, I would be careful. Like, I wouldn't be, risk getting stuff on them. Of course, that's why they have the plastic covers. And I would make sure I don't leave them anywhere. But still, I still don't like the possibility, I might, something might happen to the book, so I don't want to take it with me. And, and then I have so many of my other books that I want to read. At least now I'm here with my books, so if I, want to read something different, But anyway, so. Okay, I got 2. I was able to restrict myself to 2, because even though, yes, I'm not spending the money so I can get as many books as I want. I mean, I think you can get up to even 15 books. But I still felt like I need to, restrain myself, because I have books that I bought and that have been sitting on my shelf. I need to read those as well. And then with the library book, even though, yes, I can renew them, I'll still want to finish those books first before I finish a new book, because I want to at least try to get these books that I get from the library read, as much as get them, like, if not finished, at least mostly read. So the first one is Piglet, a novel by Lottie Hazel. This was a book I heard about on Jen Campbell's channel. And I think, if I remember correctly, it starts with a woman being broken up with. And her ex-boyfriend was very critical of her and her appearance. Let me read the description. Outside of a childhood nickname, she can't shake Piglet's rather pleased with how her life's turned out. An up-and-coming cookbook editor in a London publishing house, she's got lovely, loyal friends and a handsome fiancé kid. Oh, he's her fiancé. Whose rarefied family she actually most of the time likes, despite their upper-class eccentricities. One of the many, many things Kit loves about Piglet is the delicious, unfamily, elaborate meals she's always cooking. But when Kit confesses a horrible betrayal 2 weeks before they're set to be married, Piglet finds herself suddenly hungry. The couple decides to move forward with the wedding as planned, but it nears Piglet's balanced family as it nears, and Piglet's balances family expectations, pressure at work, and her quest to make the perfect cake. She finds her. Okay, so there was an actual breakup. In her quest to make the perfect cake, she finds herself increasingly unsettled, behaving in ways she can't explain. Torn between a life she's always wanted and the ravenousness that comes with not getting what she knows she deserves, Piglet is by the day of her wedding undone, but also ready to look beyond the lies we sometimes tell ourselves to get by. So it's a little off of what I thought I was told, but oh my god, doesn't that look good? What's on the cover? A hamburger. Not just a double hamburger. I mean, it looks so good. Although I do have hot dogs, so I'm gonna be having hot dogs. I love hot dogs. I know that there's a lot of, the way they make them is really gross, but that's why I'm never gonna watch how they actually make a hot dog, because they taste so good. And then I probably should not have gotten this big book, but I wanted to get a fantasy, so I picked the book that wouldn't burn. And let me make sure this is I hope this is the first one. Yeah, it says book one. I did check, but I just wanted to double check again. But I heard a lot about this on Elliot Brooks's channel. Okay, so it's Ever has lived his whole life trapped within a vast library older than empires and larger than cities. Lavinia spent hers in a tiny settlement out of the dust where no one goes and nightmares stalk. The world has never noticed them. That's about to change. Robin Hoppler, this as well as George R. R. Martin, an excellent writer, and if you like dark, you'll love Mark Lawrence. Any other famous fantasy authors? But yeah, it was so hard to decide. I was there for like a good while, going back and forth between the shelves, because our library currently, like I said, is a small one, so it's not as it's like this is the library where my sister lives is big, and the library in the next town over, actually the same town where that bookstore is bigger too. But this one, it sounds like this one's gonna be even bigger than those, because this one might even have more than one story. But I think they also wanted to make it was also because they wanted to make it as a place where you can have meetings and kids can go there to study and stuff like that. Kind of, like, because we do have a rec center here, but it's like I said, it's a hangout and people can, do sports and stuff. It's not like a quiet place. But it actually will be perfect because for elementary school age kids. Because the elementary school is, across from where we live, which is funny that my sister, we always think how it would be perfect for my sister and her kids. Although they've gone now to public school, they don't like. My sister does not like how they were being taught in public school. So I don't know how the school system is here, but okay, so this says, all books, no matter their binding, will fall to dust. The stories they carry may last longer. They might outlive the paper, but the library, even the language in which they were first written, the greatest story can reach the stars. But anyway, I'm excited to read this. And it is a series, and I did see the other books from the series there, so if I like it, at least I know. Because sometimes these at the library, my library doesn't always have all the books in the series. But there were so many books that I almost got an Emily Henry book. Because I've been kind of curious about her as an author, and I don't know if I want to actually buy her books. I mean, I did buy one of her books, but that was for my mom, although she hasn't read it. So, I mean, she started to read it, but my mom's just sadly not a reader. And it's kind of frustration as a reader myself. And on top of that, it's because, her way to relax is to scroll on her phone. And I don't love that. And I know it's relaxing, but, it's not good for your brain to scroll all the time. But anyway. So those are the books I got from the library. So that's how things are going. Like I said, I didn't get a lot of reading. I didn't read a lot. Well, with my sister visiting. But I did get, as you saw, I did get a book, and I did finish one. and I made a good progress on another. So that's, and I finally went back to the library today. So I hope all your reading is going well. Are you a library? I mean, I hope you are. I hope yes, I get anxiety about going to the library because I know I have to return the books. So I feel pressured to read them because yes, I can renew them, of course. And I only repeat that because I want to make sure you guys know that yes, I understand I can renew books. And no, I don't have to absolutely finish them, but I just like to. Sorry, I'm worried that someone's gonna say something to me and I'll be like, well, you can renew them. It's like, I'm not stupid. I know that. But anyway, do you guys go to the library? Have you been lately to your library? I think, yeah, like I said, I have anxiety about going to the library and wanting to make sure I read the books I own as well, the ones I've spent money on. Do you have that same, conflict going on in your mind, or do you not have a library close to you? But I do think it's important though, going to the library if you can, and if you have one close to you and you're able to go there, I think it is important because, there are libraries being closed in certain parts of the US, which makes me sad. Because I think libraries are important, and especially because there's the whole news about mass markets are going away. And yeah, I don't love mass markets personally, but I do think they're important because they are cheaper and you can buy a lot of them. And they fit in bags, and but they, like, unfortunately though, because they are cheaper, they can easily get ruined. And like I said, I don't love them because they're so, like, the print isn't great to read, but I can buy this size book. Not everybody can. I'm well aware of that. So I do think, my first initial thought is, it's not that big of a deal because, like I said, I don't like them. But then I realized, that, yeah, I mean, mass markets were the kind of books I would buy for myself when I could afford to. Before I started working, when I had a little bit of money, I would get mass markets. And, so I've realized, oh, well, actually, no, they're, I may not like them personally, but I think they're good for people because they're convenient. And so because of, if those go away, then you still need a library, so that people don't have to spend their money at all and they could still read these books that they love. And it makes me sad that people are taking away access to reading because of, oh, we now have the internet, we have social media, and people don't like to read. It's like, yeah, there are still people who love reading physical books, and not in a physical book is important to read. Like, having a physical book is, like, I don't know the science behind it, but but I do believe a physical book has a different effect on your brain than reading something on your computer screen. And me personally, I'm trying to find a balance between, I want to do both. I think having both in my life, because there is a convenience to Kindle and, be able to find information on the internet, even though it's not reliable. So I believe, but not everybody can do that. Not everybody, and some people want to go cold turkey because they just want to completely get rid of it because they've been so involved in social media and everything. But anyway, I'm going to stop because this is not about that. This was just an update for you guys, and I don't want to get into that conversation. I just, was thinking about it because, going to the library and everything I think is important. But anyway, I hope you guys like this video, and would love to know what you're currently reading, and I will talk to you all later. All right, bye!